And welcome to those who are joining us for the product demo today. I'm going to give it another minute approximately to allow others to join us, and we'll get started. And again, hello to everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We appreciate you taking an hour of your time to join us, and welcome to the CMAA product demo. Today's topic is Step into the Future with FlowForma Process Automation. Your presenters today are Paul Stone and Gerard Newman from FlowForma. Paul is a product strategist at FlowForma, the leading provider of no-code process automation tools. Paul uses his in-depth product and construction sector experience to support FlowForma's construction clients in achieving serious savings and competitive advantage. Paul is committed to empowering citizen developers to rapidly digitize their process and manage them smarter and faster without using any software code. As Chief Technical Officer at FlowForma, Gerard is passionate about supporting users on their digital transformation journey with no-code process automation. Gerard has over 20 years of experience designing and delivering process automation solutions that have allowed businesses to integrate and automate their operations to better deliver customer experiences and improve efficiency. If you have any questions throughout this presentation, please leave a message in the Q&A portion located at the bottom of your screen, and we will get to your questions at the end of the presentation during the Q&A portion. With that, I would like to hand the mic over to Paul, who will get us started. Thanks, Paul.
That's great. Thank you very much. I'd just like to talk first of all about our agenda today. So we're going to talk about what is process automation, how does it bring value to your business, and how does it relate to the construction industry. Then we'll talk about process automation in construction today, the current state of the market, where the need is, where do people perceive their areas of improvement. We'll talk about the benefits of process automation realized by our clients. So we'll bring up a couple of case studies and talk about their journey and how they achieve benefits and the return on investment. And then we'll do the all-important product demonstration, a big part of the show where we'll go through the product, show you what it looks like, how it works, and so on. Finally, we'll cover off some Q&A. But to kick off, I'd like to pass it over to my colleague, Gerard, who's going to talk about what is process automation and how it relates to the construction industry.
Thanks very much, Paul. So there's just a few points I'd like to cover off first of all, just to start today's session off. So I'd like to just recap on what we think a process is. So some process automation tools are very much focused around application integration, but to us, that's really only part of the solution. So to us, a process is a sequence of steps or tasks that people regularly carry out to achieve an outcome. These processes tend to be fairly well defined and involve things like data collection, document generation, and some workflow rules which determine what the next step is or what's to happen next in the overall sequence of tasks. So these types of processes are often good targets for automation. Typically there are tasks that can be automated. So things such as like generating a document automatically, sending emails, or getting data from other applications. There are tasks that can be eliminated from manual processes, such as a common one is people enter the same information into multiple different applications at the same time. And we also find that you can eliminate delays from these processes. And these delays are things like handovers from one department, one area to another area, or from one individual to another. And also things like following up on tasks, see if they're done, reporting, generating reports, and status checking. So in construction, automation can be applied to processes really at all project stages, we've found. So all the stages you typically see, such as initiation, pre-construction, procurement, construction, or indeed the closeout stage. So Paul's going to highlight a few typical use cases and some typical processes that we've seen later on in the session. So one thing I'd like to just call out in construction is that in many businesses, processes really exist within an organization, within the boundary of that organization, and they are often in one location. That isn't the case with construction. So construction processes tend to extend from project office to on-site operations and involve contractors and suppliers. So enabling all of these people to work seamlessly together helps significantly improve efficiency, and it's an area that is a key strength of FlowForma. So I'm going to hand over to Paul. He's going to walk us through some of the key findings from our most recent construction survey and share some case studies before we get into the demo. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Gerard. Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit about the state of process automation in construction today. We've recently carried out an extensive survey in the US where we polled over 100 people to find out their opinions on various aspects of process automation. And we're going to present the results right now and talk a little bit about them. But I guess, first of all, what we'd like to do is just see what your thoughts are and run a couple of poll questions past you. So the first poll question is, what percentage of your business processes are managed on paper, email, or spreadsheet today? So if you could kick off that poll, that would be great. And what we'll do is we leave that poll up for about a minute so that people can supply some answers. And then we'll have a look at our poll results from a questionnaire that we sent out to those 100 applicants, and we can see how similar the answers are. Okay, so let me end that poll. I'll give it 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And let's have a look. Oh, well, we see here there's a very large percentage, 76 to 100%, and 60% of applicants replied in that area. So that's really very significant. It's quite surprising to see the number of processes that are actually manual in your organization, where you're using paper, email, or spreadsheets. And what we'll do now is we'll have a look at the results that we received from our own poll. And what we'll see very quickly is that we got a very similar set of results. Now, slightly skewed towards the 51 to 75%, right? But you can see that over 60% of construction firms are still using outdated methods for executing processes. And what do we mean by that? Well, they're depending on pieces of paper or email chains to record processes, which is quite an inefficient and not productive way of executing the process. Why? Because, well, pieces of paper can get lost in a pocket or whatever and not be passed on to the next person in line to ensure that that task is completed. Also, if you're using an email chain, something similar happens where you don't know if the email is forwarded on to the next person in line. So you never quite know where the process is. It's very difficult to track processes. And very often, firms resort to tracking processes on spreadsheets, trying to maintain all the communications and note down those communications in a spreadsheet to track the statuses of all the processes, which is very efficient and also very prone to error. So you're never quite sure, 100% sure, where your process is right now. And you have a very limited way of capturing data on that process and reporting on it. So manual processes are very inefficient. They also don't provide you with key data for analytics to help you to operate your business smarter and faster and more efficiently. So we would propose, of course, that automated processes is a solution to this, where you can actually store all your process detail in one central database, where you can use and analyze all that process data. You can see straight away where the process is right now, which resources it with, who's actually got the ball, and you can quickly look at that and improve the process over time as well, and make yourself more efficient and more competitive in the marketplace. So the next poll we're going to run is what is your main process challenge? So what we'd like to hear from you is what area do you find as a main process challenge in your organization? So maybe if you could run that poll now, leave it open for about a minute, and then we'll look at our results from our survey and see if they match up. Okay, well, I'm seeing a clear leader, so I'll give it the old 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we'll share those results. And what we can clearly see is that people's lack of visibility of processes inside their organization, where the process is now at the moment, where the ball is. That's really the key concern that people have, followed by the reliance on paper-heavy processes. So let's see our poll results on this. One moment. So what we can see is that there is a little bit of a difference in our poll results, surprisingly, where that we actually see security was as highly voted on our poll, but that was closely followed by that reliance on paper-heavy processes, and the inability to create a single view of processes was a significant part of a significant piece of feedback from our community. So I think what we can see is that there's a significant presence in the construction industry of those paper-based processes, and it's noted as being a problem, where it's noted that people are finding themselves too reliant on paper-based processes. And it's also, I think, the surge in interest in analytics in construction is driving the need to report on those processes. So to report on processes, you have to gather the data. And unfortunately, with those paper-based processes, you're never going to get the data to perform the analytics. So this is really a key concern for people in construction today. What I'd like to do here is now just jump back and have a look at a different slide, which shows the areas that people see they want to improve inside their organization. So what particular process types or processes that they would like to see improvement. And what we're seeing here is just the very top of the list. What we found in our responses from our polls was that actually there were very many processes that people wanted to automate. But as you can see, these are the processes in the high 90s, the top processes that people wanted to automate. And what we can see is that safety is number one. It's not a great deal of surprise there. Obviously, safety is very, very important. And processes surrounding safety, such as incident management, non-conformity reporting, and so on, that's something that people see as a very big deal and an area that they want to focus on. And we'll be talking a little more in the demonstration and showing you an example of a safety observation process so that you can see what one looks like in real life when it's been automated. And if it hasn't been automated, it's very difficult to track all the safety issues that you see on a particular project. And it's quite difficult, therefore, to put in place those preventative actions to ensure that those incidents don't happen in the future. Quality is also important. And what we've seen, and I'll talk about this more when we talk about our case studies, is that automating your business processes really can have a direct impact on improving your quality. A big side effect of that is that you improve your customer's experience. So you actually improve your relationship with your customer. And this is becoming more and more important. We see in our construction clients that this is really something that is an unexpected benefit. And it's ultimately generating, giving you a better competitive advantage, a better competitive position when you go to bid again on future projects, that you can actually say, oh, well, our quality impressed our previous clients, and we can show that to you directly, show you the stats on that. Saving worker time is always going to be there. Productivity is always a key benefit of improving those business processes, and improving productivity, of course, has a direct impact on your bottom line. So in such a tight margin industry such as construction, really seeing those benefits in dollars and cents at the end of the day is really very important. So saving worker time, not surprisingly, is one of the top areas people want to automate. And that's closely aligned with operational efficiency. So operational efficiency is essentially removing those redundant tasks that Gerard would have referred to right back at the start of the presentation, where you can actually, refine your processes over time and make your digital processes match your pool of resources and match your suppliers and clients' needs very closely. So in other words, what you're doing there is you're making the process work most efficiently for you. You're not taking a generic process to let's say, carry out an NCR. You're actually using the NCR process that matches your workforce, your resources, and your particular client base. And when we talk about our case studies, we'll talk about how different construction companies modify their processes to suit their own particular needs using our tool. Okay, just very briefly, here's some examples of processes that are automated by our construction clients. So these are real world examples. They're just a few, because many of our clients automate at scale. What that means is they automate every process that they have. So we have companies who automate hundreds of processes, but even smaller construction companies will automate 40 or more processes. So this is just a small subset of the processes that can be automated. And you can see favorites like instant management, probably our single largest, probably the process that is automated most by our client base. We also have a risk assessment forms, we have job safety forms, and also we have joiners, leavers, and movers. A big challenge in construction, as everybody knows, is managing the workforce, managing the contractor workforce in particular, onboarding that workforce, and also letting them go at the end of the project, and managing the changing workforce throughout the project. So processes to handle that are very of great interest to our customers in construction. And then I won't go through the full list because it will take far too long, but it gives you some idea of the breadth and variety of processes that can be managed using FlowForma. And during the demonstration, I'll be showing you a few of these. Okay, so another area that has come up again and again with our construction clients, especially in the US, is integration. And maybe Gerard might like to talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Paul. Yeah, so what we see very much in the construction sector is I suppose the multiple applications that are commonly used in companies of all sizes. So these are different applications which do different things for the business. So when you're implementing a layer of process capability in your organization, you really need to be able to tie into these different applications that you're using so that you can pull data from them and push data into them. So, I mean, the most common ones you can see there in this question, in the results of this question. So project management software, not surprisingly, is right up the top, with then some sort of document management software. So you can imagine this is extremely important for storing all the various documents associated with the various phases of a construction project. After that, we have CRM systems, such as HubSpot, Salesforce, etc., and also finance systems. So from a FlowForma point of view, we spend quite a bit of our time and a significant amount of our R&D investment in creating easy-to-use integrations so that we can tie processes into these various applications that people are already using in their organizations. And in that way, we can make their processes more efficient and make it easier for people who work within those processes to do their job on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, certainly from my interactions with our customer base, integrations has risen up the agenda, and everybody wants to integrate with everything at this stage. And you can kind of see that reflected in the figures on the screen, where we have high percentages interfacing with a wide variety of systems. And that again reflects the kind of variety of use cases or scenarios people are using FlowForma for. So we have clients who, for example, use FlowForma to manage contracts. They also integrate with DocuSign so that signed documents are collected and stored correctly at appropriate points from contractors. So there's really is a very wide array of systems that people like to integrate with. And as Gerard has just said, FlowForma have developed integrations into many, many, many systems. So we do see this as an area that's really, really increased over the past 2 years. And the interest in integrations is really significant at this point. So what we're going to do now is talk a little bit about a couple of case studies, so we can talk about the journey that clients take with FlowForma and the benefits that they realize from the FlowForma system. So first of all, we'll talk about Morgan Construction. So they're civil construction environmental projects firm headquartered in Canada with over 500 employees. They had a very big challenge because it had a constantly moving workforce. So they'd have over 200 contractors at any one point in time, but that contractor workforce would change all the time. And they desperately needed a system to manage this. They were using a system that was based on a very large Excel spreadsheet, but managing this was a nightmare because of all the documentation, all the communications that they had to send to and from the contractors had to be logged somehow on the spreadsheet. And then they had some basic reports that they could run off the spreadsheet. But the problem was that those reports were only accurate when the data was accurate. So if the spreadsheet wasn't kept up to date constantly with every single change, every single employee coming in and out, the data that they got out of the spreadsheet was going to be inaccurate for analytics. And this was really causing a big problem. It was a board level concern and they needed a solution. So they deployed FlowForma and implemented a process for onboarding the workforce. And they did that very quickly. So I think it was done in about 10 weeks from the beginning to the very end, full implementation. And this process allowed them to manage their workforce, the onboarding process, and also manage the fleet of vehicles that they were using as well. And at the end of the day, because it's a digital process, all the data surrounding that process is captured and stored in a single central database. And what this allowed them to do was have real-time analytics. So as the process moved from one step to the next, that was recorded in the database and they were able to see it immediately on an interactive dashboard. It really was a game changer in terms of how they could manage their workforce and how they could manage the onboarding of employees onto new projects. So as new projects started, they were fully resourced. They could execute on the scheduled start date and of course complete on the scheduled completion date. And then the workforce could be off-boarded. So it allowed them to really manage that in a way that they could never have done before. And it also provided them a means for expansion as well, because by automating the process, they were more agile as a company. So they were able to take on larger projects, shorter projects, etc. And because the onboarding process was no longer a bottleneck in their operations. At the end of the day as well, because they were capturing all the information digitally, they were able to validate that information at the point of capture. So it wasn't a case of entering in information into a spreadsheet and then finding out after you produce the reports that, well, there must be something wrong, going back and checking it, etc. Because all the data was validated right when it was captured, at the point of capture, it meant that it was correct when it went into the system. So the real-time reporting was always right. And at the end of the day, it involved significant time savings because they didn't have to go back and make those corrections to the data and backtrack through the process and when errors were made. Why? Because the errors were trapped at the time the task was executed, right? So they had better data. They didn't have to go back in the process and redo it again and again. So significant time savings. So that's more in construction. I'd like to move on now and talk a little bit about Sullivan Engineering. So Sullivan Engineering are a building consulting firm providing technical assistance for exterior restoration projects. A significant firm, an expanding firm. However, they were heavily based on paper-based processes, and it really was limiting their efficiency and productivity, which was becoming an increasing challenge as we're getting more and more business in the door. So they wanted to become more efficient, and they looked to deploy FlowForma to rapidly automate processes. A particular trigger point for them was it happened at the start of the pandemic when regulations were being put in place where they have to carry out COVID checks on all their employees. And this was the key trigger point for them to start with process automation. And what we find is that that's often the case. A lot of our construction clients need some kind of trigger point, some immediate need that causes them to start the process automation journey. In this case, it was COVID checklists, but they very rapidly deployed COVID checklists. I think they were deployed in a matter of 3 to 4 weeks. And then they decided, okay, well, this is so quick and easy, we're gonna go further. And then they digitized over 20 processes in the following months. So they were really able to digitize at scale. And that's one of the things we find with particularly in our construction firms, that they really see big benefits when they digitize at scale. So don't just digitize one thing, digitize many things, and your return on investment will be really very significant. So as you can see here, they worked on field inspection reports and leak investigation reports, which had major positive impacts on the quality of the service they were delivering, and which in turn had a positive impact on their customer experience. They tried other technologies, by the way. So FlowForma was not the only system on the table. They also looked at systems like Microsoft Power Apps, for example. But they were finding that it was 4 times faster to automate with FlowForma. Why? Because it's a no-code system. It's very quick and easy to learn. And then once you've learned it, it's very quick and easy to digitize the process. In fact, you can digitize a process in a matter of weeks. And we provide a service that helps you, handholds you through that process. So you can digitize it yourselves, you can own that solution yourselves, but we'll help you every step of the way. And as I said, when they digitized those particularly leak investigation reports, there was a significant improvement in client satisfaction, because they were generally improving the quality of the service that they delivered, differentiating themselves against their competitors, and having a real positive impact on client relations. They also, of course, improved their productivity through managing, as I was saying earlier on, by validating the data at point of capture so that you don't have to go back and check it again or correct it. You collect it right first time. And it also allowed them to keep company-wide standards, so that if you define a digital process and everybody follows that same digital process, it means that you have a standard level of quality and service across the entire business, which is really advantageous and so much better than working on paper-based processes or processes based on email chains, where every single process may or may not be different. There's no guarantee that a process will be followed correctly every time, while a digital process automation system forces you to follow certain steps to achieve a business goal, for example. Okay, so what we'll do now is I'm just going to very briefly pop up a slide just to show that FlowForma deals with a wide variety of different customers in construction. The names on this particular board here are just a subset of the clients that we have, but they're small companies, they're large companies, they're civil construction, they're housing, they're subcontractors. So there's really a very wide variety of our clients in construction. And that's because of the flexibility of the system, where you can digitize any process you like to help improve your efficiency. And you'll see that more when we go through our demonstration, where I'll show you a range of processes for a whole variety of different things. Okay, so that takes us on to the main part of the show, I suppose, which is our demonstration. So if I escape out of my presentation here, just bear with me a moment. What we'll do is we'll have a look at the FlowForma system. So this particular screen here is just a landing page where we have several construction templates that we can show and you can use if you purchase the system. And you can see here that the system is being accessed via a web-based interface. So you're just using a web browser to go into the system and see a home page. And this home page here, like I said, is preloaded with construction processes. Now, this is our standard home page. As you can see, it's FlowForma branded and so on, but you can actually have your own home page. So you don't have to use the standard one that we provide. You can go and build your own one. Just bear with me 1 second and I will show you that. There we go. So this is an example of a customized page that I created, and you can see I can change the branding, change the graphical, so include photographs, etc. And down here, I included some lists of some field change requests as it happens that I've got to do. So this is my work list, if you like. And then down here, I've got I put in a report just showing me a live view of all the materials requisitions or purchase orders, essentially, that I've raised. So I can drill into this and see individual purchase orders. So what you can do here is you can quickly change the landing page, if you like, to suit your own particular needs. Now, what I'll do for the purpose of the demo here is I'll just jump back onto our standard landing page and run one of our processes just to show you what it looks like. So what I'll do to begin with is I'll kick off a safety observation. So when you click on that button, it automatically launches a process in your browser. And this process contains a form to collect data and steps in the workflow. In this case, I've just got one step in my process. And down here, then I see all the data that I want to capture for that step. Now, we support a wide array of types of data that you can capture. So it's not just simple pieces of text, for example. You can actually capture things like GPS coordinates. You can display a Google map inside our digital form here. You can automatically capture the location if you want to, which is shown down here, or I can search the map for a particular location point. It automatically sets the date and time. It automatically captures the current user. So you're logged into the system, it knows who you are, and it automatically can show that on the screen. You can also upload photographs, pictures and so on, or files, and you can apply comments in it, and you can store information in a table. So a wide array of data that can be captured on this electronic form. Now, the great thing about FlowForma is that this particular form here is to capture a safety observation. But if you click on another one of these guys, let's say a recording of issues, which is essentially an NCR type process, you'll see that the actual form itself works in a very similar way. Again, I have my, we call it step bar running across the top of the screen that shows you all the steps in the process. You can see at the moment I'm on the very first step. These steps will run subsequent to this, and all the steps are required to be completed to achieve the business goal, which is to record the issue. And down here, then, we're going to record some issue details. And these issue details relate to this current step. So to raise an issue, I've got to record the issue type and so on, the operating unit and the location, for example. And then I can specify if it's a supply chain issue or not. I can also specify NCR categories. I can add in new NCR categories and so on. So the idea here is that the person carrying out this task, raise the issue, has to complete these details to record the issue in the system. Ultimately, then, they submit that form to move it on to the next logical step in the process. And the next logical step in the process may be assigned to another person. So what happens is the form closes and the other person is notified, maybe via an email, that says, please carry out the next step in the process. So they can click on the form and it will open up on the next step and they can enter their details to complete that particular step. So the idea is with the system is that all of the processes, no matter what they are, all operate the same way. So this is an onboarding process. The data is different. The steps in the process are different, but the user interface is very similar. And the reason this was done is to make onboarding easier, so that if a person, a construction worker, learns how to use one process, they can use any process. Why? Because the user interface is the same every time. So even though steps change, data changes, user interface is similar. Now I'm using this system on a browser right now, but the system is also available on mobile devices, which of course is critical for construction. So we've built a mobile app which runs on Android and iOS Apple devices, which allows you to access forms from the mobile interface. So let me just pop up a mobile emulator here, which emulates an Android device. And we can see the safety observation report that I ran earlier on. This is what the exact same form looks like on a mobile app. As you can see, it looks very, very similar. Again, that's quite deliberate. So that if you're using FlowForma on a browser or you're using it on your mobile device, you're always going to see the same kind of functionality, the same kind of view. So that it's very easy to switch between the two. And that's what we find in construction. Most processes actually use the two interfaces when the process executes. So it might start on site where you're filling in the initial step in the form on a mobile device. And then the second step in the process is actually carried out by somebody in HQ, and they're using a browser or desktop session to access the process. So you can interchange these two interfaces very easily. The system automatically adjusts whether you're using the form from a mobile or from a desktop. The other thing about our mobile app is that it also allows you to use for or fill in the form while offline. Now, this was a feature we specifically built for our construction clients because we know that construction clients are very often in areas of poor connectivity. So if you can actually fill in this form offline when you're not connected to the internet, and then synchronize it back to the central system when you are back in the office, let's say, when you have connectivity again. So it's a key feature that's used by many of our construction clients. Also, there are other integrations with the mobile environment that happen automatically. So for example, when I click on this upload button here, it automatically gives me the option to take a picture with the mobile device camera if I want to. And when I take that picture, I can also apply annotations to that picture. So for example, you can use it for quality checks, so that on your mobile device, you can take pictures of quality issues that you find in your on your site, for example, and then report them in as a nonconformity, and then have people take corrective actions on that. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is talk a little bit about how these processes are made, because the big thing about FlowForma is not that you can just execute digital processes. You can define your own processes for your environment to be used by your resources on your projects. And they will be attuned, if you like, to your way of working. FlowForma doesn't force you down a route of, oh, you must follow this process exactly. You can actually define your own processes or modify the templates that we provide to you to match your specific environment. And I'm going to show you how that's done. So let's take this onboarding process here where we have new hire details, employee manager review, sign-off documents, and so on. Let's have a look at how that process is configured. I'm going to close that view and go into the administration view and open up that onboarding process. What we see here is we have a tool called the Flow Designer, and that tool allows you to define the process. So we're not running the process now, we're actually defining the process that everybody else is going to use. So in here, I can see the various steps in the process here. And on the right-hand panel, I can see what the form actually looks like. The system automatically generates that form for you, and you can change the look and feel of the form very easily. For example, you can get rid of that FlowForma logo and replace it with your own. You can also change the form colors to match your own colors, etc. But if I want to change the process, let's say I wanted to add in a new process, HR approval, sorry, a new step in the process, HR approval. I can click on the process here, click on a button plus step, add in the text of the name of the step, name of the step of the process, HR approval, and then press OK, and it automatically adds that step into the process. But it adds it in at the very bottom, the very last step. I can drag it up to the appropriate point that I want to execute it. Let's say I want it to be the second step. And automatically then it appears as a second step of the process. In there, I can add in a question. And the question might be to, say, do you approve? Do approve. And then I can specify whether I want them to answer a piece of text, say yes, or say no, or I can pick a different type of answer. So I could pick, for example, a choice question here, where they can choose between yes or no, or I could pick something like a yes/no question, nice and easy. And with a yes/no question, there's only two options. You can either pick yes or no. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make this a mandatory field, and I'm going to say, please review the request and approve. This will be some help text that will appear when the person clicks on the field. So I'm going to press save. And what that does is it automatically adds this question into the second step. So this process right now will start off with somebody recording the details of a new hire. Typically, that'll be the employee manager. It will then go on to HR, and HR will be required to approve it or not. Now I can see what that looks like straight away. So if I press save and close, let's go back home and let's click off that onboarding process. And straight away, we'll see that there's a new step in the process. So the very next person who goes in and uses the form will see this new step. I'm going to type in some fields here, some mandatory fields. And what I'm going to do is then just submit the form just to show you what it looks like. One more mandatory field here. And then we'll press submit. And it automatically moves on to the HR approval step. Do you approve? Here's the help text. And I can see, yes, I need to look back here at the request. Oh, there's the request. And yes, I want to move forward and approve and move it on to the next step in the process. So that's the way the system works. It's very easy to change, very easy to create new processes. But the system has extensive ability to add in automation. So it's not just about executing steps in the process and capturing data as you go along. It also introduces automatic actions that can help with the efficiency of your work. So we have these things called business rules that carry out automatic actions, like, for example, integrating with an external system. So, for example, Microsoft Dynamics, or you can use a system called Logic Apps to integrate to a wide variety of backend systems. You can also call external APIs. Well, we also have automated communications. So you can send emails automatically. You can generate documents as well. In fact, we have a very flexible document generator so that we use Microsoft Word as a template. This is a real life example of a concrete pre-poured check sheet where you can see a view of the workflow on the on the right-hand panel here. And you can merge in the data from the form into your template here. So you can start off with a Word template that you're using in your daily operations right now. And when you digitize that process, you can actually merge in the data captured in the electronic form into that Word template and automatically generate it as a PDF. We also have integrations with tools such as DocuSign. So you can send a PDF to DocuSign and have your contractor sign it and then return it back into the FlowForma environment. So within this system as well, we have a lot of additional features. Our full demonstration takes about an hour, but please contact us through our website, flowforma.com, and we'll be happy to give you a full demonstration. I won't have a full time for that today, but what I would like to do is just talk about a few key features, just to whet your appetite in terms of what can be achieved using FlowForma. One of the things the system does is, as you're executing processes, it captures lots of data. It's not just the data that you see on the screen. It's all the audit trail of that process. So who did what step in the process and when did it do it? How long did it take and so on? And you can track all of that through process performance reporting. So we have process performance reporting built into the system so that you can see all the processes, where they are right now, whether they're running on time or whether they're running late. So you can set estimated benchmark durations for everything in the system, every step in the process, or the process overall duration. And you can see how your processes are actually performing against those estimated durations. For more than that, the system records every single form that you fill in. So what you can do over time is analyze every single execution of the process and look at process trends to find where there are bottlenecks in the processes, so that you can see where those bottlenecks are. Everything's recorded in the audit trail. You can see the detail and try and identify why those bottlenecks are occurring, then modify the process, and over time, improve the performance. Now we have built-in reports that actually will show you a trend analysis. So it will show you how your process is improving over time. And you can use continuous improvement techniques to improve your process and make your operations more efficient. We also have reporting that allows you to analyze the data that's captured in the form using tools like Microsoft Power BI or Tableau. So depending on your own environment, you may have different reporting tools in it, and you can use those with FlowForma. The next thing is that a lot of people ask, well, how easy is it to get started on FlowForma? It's very straightforward. So we provide you, when you purchase FlowForma, we provide you with an ability to to get started very quickly. We call it our Sure Start program. And what we do is we train you to build out your own solutions or modify these templates or build everything from scratch if you like. And we will assist you building out that first process and getting it live in a very short space of time. We aim to get it live in a 4 to 6 week period. Now that's really important because getting a process live, that's when you start getting return on investment. Any system that you build is it's only good when it's adopted by the workforce. And we've specifically built FlowForma to be easy to build and easy to adopt so that you can get it out there in the field as quickly as possible. So our Sure Start program is very successful and it gets you up and running as quickly as possible. We also provide extensive help documentation and so on to let you drill into more detail if you want to. And we've got a very extensive library of functionality and instructional videos and so on, everything to help you to get started as quickly as possible. The system is designed as a no-code system. What that means is that you don't have to be an IT person to build out your own solutions. It's specifically designed for non-IT people to get to grips with very quickly. The only thing you need to know is you need to know your process. You need to know how your organization works. You need to know the layout of resources in your organization. And once you know all of those things, you can actually build out a process really quickly by just configuring some forms like I showed you earlier on. The interface that we're using is an award-winning interface. It's been seen as being unique and we've scored highly in Waves by Forrester. We've also got excellent G2 reviews. Go on to g2crowd.com and have a look at those to see what people are saying about FlowForma. The final thing I'd like to say is just an area where we feel we are leading our market is we have a system called governance. Now, what our governance system does, basically it allows you to have sandbox areas in your company where people like engineers, for example, can safely play around with FlowForma and innovate, build new processes to help automate your operations. And then those processes can be promoted into production environments. What this means is that a lot of IT people in organizations, for example, raise concerns that, oh, well, I don't want my engineers building systems. They might break things. So what our governance application allows you to do is build out a solution, just like I did there, in a safe sandbox area, and then apply to have that moved into production. And IT people can then test and vet the innovative process that you built before it goes into the production environment. So it provides an element of risk control for people building out new solutions themselves. Okay, at that point, I think maybe we'll move on to some Q&A. So I'll just jump back into our presentation here. And maybe we'll take some questions.
Hey, this is Michelle. I do have some questions that have come through your presentation. The first one is, how does FlowForma manage production schedules and staff utilization tracking?
Yeah, so you can actually build out processes to manage those particular areas. So in the sense that FlowForma, you can build out processes that manage, for example, a work schedule, so that you can record the work schedule details. Oh, I should explain, FlowForma sits on top of a system called SharePoint, and all of the data and documentation and so on are stored in SharePoint by default. It can also be stored in an external database as well. Just a little technical point I should have mentioned earlier on. But essentially, these work schedules can be stored in that area, and you can manage the work schedule through an electronic form that you saw there earlier on. You can define the form to meet your specific needs, your specific pool of resources, and also you can manage your specific tasks in a task list with dates, etc., with predecessors and successors and so on. And you manage your schedule using an electronic form. So that hopefully answers that question, but I can go into more detail if needs be.
And I forgot to mention that was Jennifer that asked the question. Thank you, Jennifer. If you have any additional questions in in regards to your original question, please type it in the Q&A. William is asking, how easy is it to adopt a no-code process automation tool? And how quickly can you automate your first process?
Yeah, well, it's really very straightforward to deploy FlowForma. So installing FlowForma is usually a 5-minute job. And then you can start configuring your first process straight away. As I was saying earlier on, the way we propose you do it is you you follow our Sure Start program. So a Sure Start program is all to do with hand-holding you through the creation of your first process. And we find that people can create a process within a week and then refine it and get it live within a 4 to 6 week period. So it's really very straightforward to get a process up and running. It does depend on the process complexity, I guess, but what we do is we help you select a process that will give you a guaranteed return on investment in a short time frame. So we'll actually go through a process with you, analyze it, and look to see how much value you will gain from automating it, and then handhold you through the process of digitizing that. So we find it gets you to a very quick return on investment.
Thank you, Paul. Rachel is asking, are there any specific skills required to digitize processes with a no-code tool like FlowForma's?
I can start off with that one, Paul, if you want.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So I don't think there's any specific, there's definitely no technical skills required. You've seen there in the demonstration how easy it is to start constructing a process with FlowForma. I think really the key thing is an understanding of the existing business and an understanding of processes that exist in it. And then a willingness to spend some time trying to automate those processes and engage with other people in the organization so you can get their input as well into the finished product. But as Paul said earlier on, our preferred approach to this is for somebody to take the lead and start building out a process and then engage other people and then start refining it. So you're going through kind of iterations of developing the process to get it to a point where it can easily be rolled out in the organization.
Thank you so much for answering that. We have about 5 more questions coming in. George has asked, how has Flow for a been tested in claim situations specifically during recovery? I think is how has FlowForma been tested in claim situations specifically during discovery?
Okay, I'm not sure the full context of that question, but we do have FlowForma used in the construction industry where it's used to process insurance industry, where it's used to process insurance claims. Maybe that's in line with the question. And it allows people to record claim details. It's used in call center environments. And the claim details are then processed through a series of review and approval steps, and then passed on to a claims handling system within the insurance industry. Now, I'm not sure that probably doesn't quite answer the question in the construction context, so I may have misunderstood, and apologies for that. Maybe if we get more detail, we'll be very happy to respond to Jorga following this webinar.
We can certainly connect you two together to make sure that that answer is understood, and if there's any more information to be provided. DS has asked, do processes record a timestamp of each step, specifically approvals?
Yes, the system captures the full audit trail. So I didn't make the point very well earlier on, but every time you log into FlowForma, the system records your credentials. It knows who you are. And every time you fill in details on a step and submit that step, it records a timestamp against that, including your login details. So it knows who did what and when. And a full audit trail is retained on every single process and every single process step. So it's very useful in environments where you're required to be compliant, where the environment may be regulated. And we do have many instances of that in our civil construction clients, especially in the UK, where it's a more highly regulated environment and they are required by contract to maintain a log of all the activity that they did. So FlowForma does this automatically, and it can save that automatically in a database that you can actually give to your client when the project is complete. So it's yeah, it absolutely does record a timestamp, but it records not just that, it records full-blown audit trail of all activity.
Thank you so much. Pat says, and we do see this quite a bit, that they have quite a bit of employees working on sites with little or no internet. Would your mobile app support this?
Yeah, so I can take that one. So absolutely, the mobile app was, as Paul mentioned earlier on, we have an offline capability in it, which was specifically built out for the construction sector. So what this allows somebody to do is to complete a form and start a process, work on a step in a process when they are online. And then if they go to a position where they're offline, they can still complete the form. And then when they go back online, it'll automatically synchronize up. So this allows people to move between areas where there is little or no internet access, but they can still go ahead and use the mobile app to fill out forms and participate in the process.
I think that's an area, Gerard, that's really been hit with our construction clients. They see mobile as a must-have, an absolute must-have. So having that mobile ability, and especially where you have a mobile device to access a form, and then the next step in the process can be accessed on a desktop, and you can change between the two. That's really a big advantage for us. It really helps our clients, and the offline capability, obviously in construction where you have people working on remote sites, is a big advantage.
Thank you so much. Brian is asking that he has stated he's been looking at a number of low code and no code options, and what makes you different from your competitors?
Well, I think the key difference for us is that we're specifically designed for business people to build their own processes. And what this means is that there's a whole variety of aspects to this, but essentially it's easy to learn. It's very easy to pick up FlowForma and build out a process yourself and achieve early success. And that's so important because business people generally don't have a whole lot of time. So you've got to be able to build something very quickly, and you can do that using FlowForma. And because it's easy to learn, you can get started quickly, you can get a result quickly, and that speed is something that really differentiates us versus our competitors. And we've looked at, sorry, Gerard, please carry on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think there's a couple other things as well, and the fact, when you look at most processes, they do consist of this concept of collecting data, rules to actually send items, different steps, etc. And also the ability to generate things like documents and emails, etc. automatically. So rather than going to multiple different places to solve those pieces of the problem, FlowForma brings them all together in one easy-to-use interface. So that makes it much easier to build and deploy applications and to manage them. And in addition to that, we also have, as we mentioned earlier, extensive integration. So what we're trying to do is sit within the construction ecosystem with all the other applications that are in use, and really add this process capability to that, but all in a no-code, easy-to-use manner.
Okay, thank you. And along those lines, we have one last question. Unless anyone else has, please let us know in the Q&A as soon as possible. Is it possible to generate reports with FlowForma? That is the question for you. Is it possible to generate reports?
I can pick that one up. So absolutely, yes. So FlowForma, like I said, is essentially capturing all the data that I showed you earlier on in the form, just capturing a lot of data automatically about performance. So it captures how long steps took, etc., who did them, and so on. But it also captures the data that you see on that screen. And all that data that you see on the screen can be used in reporting. So you saw a very simple example there that on one of the screens that I showed, where we were looking at materials requisitions, essentially purchase orders, and it was aggregating all the detail from all the purchase orders in the system and displaying it on a simple Power BI report as it happened. So FlowForma can do that. It can grasp the data out of those forms and display it on the screen, and it supports many standard reporting tools such as Microsoft Power BI being a very popular tool at the moment in the Microsoft environment, and also tools like Tableau. So you can easily pull the data out of FlowForma and represent it in dynamic dashboard reports and so on.
Thank you both so much. That leads us right to the 1 hour mark. We will be sending out an email tomorrow morning for everyone, which will include a copy of this presentation and some other information on FlowForma, and also Paul and Gerard's contact information if you would like to reach out to them directly. Thank you again for your time. And Paul and Gerard, if you have any last thoughts, please share them with us now.
The only thing I would say here is that just on the slide that I've shown there is we provide a 14-day trial. If you go on our website, you can contact one of our staff and they will set that up for you and put you in contact with some process experts that can guide you through using system and trying it out. And that's what we urge you to do, try it out. Because a lot of people think, well, no, it can't be that easy to use. Well, it really is. And we have a lot of proof points to show that. And I think when you see it and use it yourself, you'll see just how easy it is to get results.
Thank you so much. You enjoy your late afternoon or evening, and everyone have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.